Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Shaping Africa podcast. Today I am joined by Mugambi Nthiga. Mugambi is an actor, writer, director, and storyteller. He began his acting career in Nairobi's theatre scene in the early 2000s.
Correct.
His acting career would later grow during a brief stint in America in the late 2000s, where he was active in the Philadelphia theatre and indie film scene. On returning to Kenya, he landed principal roles in celebrated Kenyan films like Nairobi Half Life and Stories of Our Lives. He co-wrote the award-winning feature films Kati Kati and Supa Modo, and his directorial debut was Lusala.
Correct.
He's also part of the improv comedy collective called Because You Said So. Mugambi, I'm so honored to have you on the show.
Hey.
And welcome. Yeah, it's really
Thanks.
good to have you here.
Yeah.
And lots of happy memories from Philly as
True.
well, which is where you and I met.
Yes. Those are good times.
Yeah,
Man.
really good times.
Yeah.
So as you know, this season on the podcast, we are really focusing on people who were in the diaspora and then made the transition back, and kind of really focusing in on that story and what your journey has been through that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe as a start, you can tell us, how did you end up in the US?
I'm really fortunate to have had folks who are willing to support my dreams as far as education went. So my mom and dad, leveled with me and said, hey, we're not getting any younger. If you do want to continue your studies and get a master's degree, and I'm sure you remember back then, if you graduated, like in the early 2000s, this is when this whole rhetoric of first degree is nothing in this world. Now you have to go and get a master's degree. Sure. So they were like, willing to support you in that regard. Now, it's funny how time works out. Had I said yes immediately, my life would have gone a completely different route, because I probably would have graduated and not had to be graduating into a recession, because I had a head start of like a year. But after thinking about it, I was like, yes, I'll do it. They were willing to support me in that regard. And then I got a partial scholarship, and then I was going to, as far as tuition goes, they were going to help out. And then it was on me to also find ways to take care of myself while I was there.
Of course.
So I ended up in Syracuse University in June of 2007, studying advertising, because that's what I was doing.
Right.
I was working in the ad scene in Nairobi before finally deciding, this is what I think I want to do for the rest of my life. See how that worked out. I was in Syracuse for a year. When I was joining, everything was good. America was fine. The myth of America was still very much alive and well.
Correct.
We didn't know that there was a housing crisis, and we didn't know that we were on the edge of a recession. Of course, some people knew, but it was being kept away from us. We were still living the American dream.
Correct.
So 2008, literally after I submitted my last paper like this, a week later, America was officially in a recession. I remember my friend warning me and saying, things are not going to be fine for long, because we were seated in New York City. I'd gone to visit her there at a cafe, a Starbucks opposite the Lehman Brothers building. I don't know if you remember what the Lehman Brothers building looked like. It had this huge LCD display.
I see green with like a lot of, the LCD display.
Yes, it was huge. It was huge, and it had like, it wasn't even like Microsoft type images of wheat fields and whatever. It was like moving images, and they were huge, and it was Lehman Brothers, and I was like, wow, this building is beautiful. These guys must really be doing well. And she was like, sipped her coffee and said, not for long. And I'm like, what do you know that we don't? She was working in the banking industry. And true to her words, about a month later, they were no more. And my prospects of getting a job also were like in ICU. That began now my second year in the US, a year of complete uncertainty. Job searches all over the place. The promise when we joined was that you guys are set. Like, you've come to this school.
Sure, yeah. Syracuse is a really good school for communications.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Their communications college was the best.
Absolutely.
One of the best in the country. So it was like, you guys have your lives made. There's just 15 of you in the master's class. So you're already ahead.
Wow, it was such a small class.
Oh, a small class, 15 people.
Wow.
And it was unprecedented that there were 2 Kenyans in that one class. I don't think they'd even had a class where there was one. And then, so we were expecting that by the time we graduate, we're going to be ready for Madison Avenue, for our big advertising careers.
Mad Men style
For the early 2000s.
Correct.
We were so looking forward to it, for the mid 2000s. So that didn't happen. We were in a recession. I was interviewing with Ogilvy, New York, and it helped that I'd worked at Ogilvy in Nairobi. And it wasn't for an entry-level position. And I was talking with a diversity special person that they'd hired for diversity. Yes, diversity recruitment. I think that was her title. So everything was looking like it's going to work out. And then this recession happens. And I remember receiving an email saying, we're going to have to put off your interview process for now. I think I was days away from receiving an offer letter because I'd done 3 interviews. The third one, I was asking most of the questions. I was going to be working on the Six Flags account, which was at Ogilvy at that point. It was a pretty big account. I even went to YouTube and looked at the previous ads, did some research on this Six Flag entertainment resort, like theme park thing. It was looking good. Then received the email saying, there's a hiring freeze, so let's just wait for this thing to blow over in a couple of months. Of course, we know how that story went.
Right.
So then I found myself, jobless, and had to make something work. And acting is what I fell back on because the scene in Philly was quite a robust scene. And I went from aspirations of being the guy in the subway in a nice cut, like smart casual suit, sipping on coffee, scrolling through their phone, to now living this very bohemian type life with artists where you don't know your next check is coming from, but it's fine. Spending long hours at the theater bar and jumping from play to play, theater to theater, and auditioning and sending headshots and resumes to get auditions. And that was my life for a year. And it's about that time that early on that I met you guys.
Correct.
Yeah. And then you saw that journey. So of course now I couldn't do that for a whole year.
Right.
My visa was coming to an end.
Sure.
And I left recession era America and came back to Kenya to make a life for myself.
So before we talk about kind of coming back, what did that time when you were, hustling, sending out your profile and being in the theater scene, what did that teach you?
Oh, so much. Do we have enough time? Oh, a lot. I'll summarize the whole story into one story. A Kenyan friend of mine was like, "Hey, you're going back to Kenya. Let's do a last hurrah. What do you want me to?" I have I think she had like $100 or $150, very generous. I set aside and said, "That's yours. Let's do with it what you want to do." And I was like, I've always wanted a tattoo. So let's go to the tattoo parlor and I'll get a tattoo on my leg because, you can cover it up and not everyone will have to know. It was the late 2000s. I was still quite conservative in my head. So I got a tattoo that said, I only need for the cameras because I don't know. Life is short. Why not? I got this.
Okay.
This.
Oh, the top part.
The top one.
Okay.
This came later on,
Sure.
but this one. And this simply means, Temet Noske means, know thyself. I hope your camera got it well. Know thyself.
Okay, wow.
That's what it got to. That's what I wanted tattooed on my leg to summarize what my experience of the US was. I really got to know myself in a wonderful. Even if there was so much difficulty attached to it, even if there was so much misery, so much uncertainty, I'll put it this way: it felt like, to some degree, it felt like 2020 in 2009, because everything was so uncertain. We didn't know what was happening next, and it came out of nowhere. And there was a lot of, you'd hear about foreclosures, people losing their homes, people losing their jobs.
Yep.
The news was just the worst. This was the end of Bush's era. But then with Obama coming in, with me choosing and taking a chance on this theater thing once more, having all these new experiences, being able to get through the difficulty. I was living on the benevolence of friends. I was, sleeping on a friend's couch and just wonderful people who I'm still friends with to this day. All of it was very new. And I was like, I realized the true impactful moments in your life don't happen in moments of comfort.
Sure.
Because you're not paying attention when you're comfortable. But when you're in a position where everything is difficult and things are uncertain and you have to get really intentional about where your joy comes from. and where your fulfillment comes from. And it's not according to any script other than your own. That's where the real life moments happen.
Yeah, you have me tearing up. I mean, I think, it's like, who are you when there's no ad job?
Yeah.
There's no, like, money coming in. Who are you really? When all that is stripped away.
I remember losing $15 and almost crying. And my brother was looking at me like,
it's only 15.
Yo, what's going on, dude? I had saved up I had a bowl, and I had saved up every single nickel, every quarter, every penny. If it was like jangly change in my pocket, I'd leave it in that bowl. And there was a bank not too far away from us that was encouraging kids to save so they could bring in their piggy banks. So I'm a whole adult there with kids, and they're putting their to the knees in this coin counter. And I was there also putting my coins in the coin counter and got $15. And it was wonderful. And I was like, this will have me set. All you think about at that point is transportation. If you can move around, you're good.
Sure.
Internet was the second most important thing, and then food. Here people don't talk about that stuff, man. You capitalistic America, moving around and connection, most important thing. Food, you can go buy a McDonald's and buy like a $1.75 burger and you'll be fine. So that $15, put in my back pocket. I'm walking around with my brother. He was visiting. He lived in Louisiana. And while we're walking around, I check my pocket and it's gone. And I had a almost like meltdown. $15. That was life, man. And I look back on it and I'm like, I guess that character building was necessary.
Kind of setting you up for
Canairo.
Okay, so when you came back, what did you do?
I floundered for 6 months. Wondering what is it that I'm going to give full attention to. Is it going to be trying to get this acting career off the ground? Because I'd been doing it for a year. And I was like, I think in knowing myself, this is what I want to do. I want to tell stories, I want to entertain people. Acting is what kept me going when the entire corporate structure of America was on its knees. It's where I found my most fulfilling experiences, where I found really good friendships, where I expanded my mind, because you got to watch plays, you got to read plays, and you just got exposed to all of this art. I wanted to do the same thing here, but it was a lot harder to secure jobs. I didn't even know where to start. I'd been only gone for 2 years, but you still feel like you have to start up again. The screen scene though was coming up. Lupita had made her debut on this show called Sugar.
Right.
You remember Sugar? Sugar came out when I was still there. Just a Band had released their first album, Scratch to Reveal. How Esuman had made a film called Soul Boy. Wanuri had made a film called Pumzi. Things just seemed to be blowing up. But it's one thing to see stuff from a distance and then come and have to now get involved in it, because there's no sugar shooting when you're here. You don't know what film is coming up next. You don't know what auditions to go for. So settling down took a while. My friends had moved on. A lot of them were married when I left them. A lot of them were on their first or second jobs when I left. Now they were on their like third or fourth, and the money was coming in. They were really settling down. I didn't want to get back into advertising, into the industry, because it can get a bit tough. The hours can be long. I really wanted to concentrate on something that was truly mine. So I was thinking about opening my own place. but that wasn't taking. I wasn't going very well. I really wanted to do consultancy jobs for advertising, so I could get paid through that. But those weren't coming through because every agency or every account of note was with an agency.
Of course.
I couldn't be a one-person agency, and I couldn't think of anyone that I wanted to get into business with. Plus, I didn't feel like I wanted to get shackled by running a business when I really wanted to be pursuing a passion. There's only so much you can do, you know, as one person. So yeah, all of this was just floundering. So 6 months after I arrived, I got a job at Scanad, at Scan Group. I want to say the specific agency within Scan Group. It wasn't Scanad though. And that started a whole other journey. One I did not enjoy. It wasn't easy. It was a tough job. I intimidated some people when I was there. Our boss was not very, our boss, let me just say, his people skills, when it came to actual people, non-corporate skills, were not very good.
I see.
He threw threats all over the place. We called him BSD, big swinging D, because he, you know, according to the thing, he'd come in and he'd be there swinging, and then, you know, he'd be like,
put that thing away.
Put that thing away. You know, we know you're the boss. And according to the law, is if you had any ideas, you had any things, he'd just swing it and knock them all down. You know, that's the best description of my boss I can tell you. Deep-voiced Indian man, and he could cut you down with his words, and he didn't hold back if he wasn't impressed by what you're doing. He'd fire people and rehire them the next day. And we were working on a very difficult account. Oh my God, yeah, with just this behemoth of an account, but with very, very scared people in it. Not admit, they hide their fear behind machismo and rank and throwing people under the bus and covering your ass. And I wasn't nice. So that took me into depression. Depressed for a while. And, you know, I came out of it at about the time a certain film was coming out called Nairobi Half Life, which I happened to be in. So film showed up, and I could say pretty much saved my life. I auditioned for Nairobi Half Life when I was still on the last stages of recovering, because by this point I'd moved from one Scan Group agency to another. I'd left that account. That dude wasn't my boss anymore. And literally when I got the call and said I got the role, I locked myself in a little room and danced. And just danced and said, yes, the dream is coming true finally. We shot over the course of a lot of nights. So I'd shoot at night and then go back to work in the morning. And then for the days that I'd have to be shooting during the day, I asked for a couple of days off. So it was a total of 7 or 8 days of shoots. And I think that became the validating factor of this is the thing that you ought to be doing.
This is the thing that feeds your soul.
Yeah. My soul.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. That's what happened when I got back. That's summary.
Oof, yeah. And I think for people wanting to come back, perhaps I think your circumstances was you had to come back.
Yeah.
And those were the cards that were dealt.
Yes.
But maybe my stories, I came back out of my own will.
Yeah.
And I still ended up in a not so great work situation.
I don't know who you're working
for.
I would say who, but I am.
Yeah, but 2 years in, I was like, this is not feeding my soul, and I need to find a way to pivot.
What wasn't working?
I think what was sold in terms of, you have carte blanche to do this, to do that, to do this. But then what you find is actually a lot of embedded institutional preference for people of certain races. And
you put that so
correctly. And I was like, I'm not about this life. I need to get in a space where I can actually do what I really want to do. And hence the transition. But I think there's always challenges when people come back. And it's about fighting through them and trying to get to places that make you happy and do work that feeds your soul.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Okay. So you've transitioned into film,
Yes.
of being an actor.
Yes.
How has that journey been for you?
I have to say, I'm always grateful for. I can't insist on this enough. Young people ought to be out there doing the stuff that makes them happy. Particularly young people. When you still have a bit of freedom, when you still have a bit of yes, time is an illusion. I can't insist on that enough. It's an illusion. When you think you don't have enough time, that's not correct. When you think your best times are behind you, that's not correct. If you decide that's how it is, that's how it'll show up for you. But then the people that I mentioned that encouraged me to come back home, the people doing all these cool things, were setting the groundwork for what would become the film industry that we have now. And I'm not just talking about the people that were making films. I'm also talking about the people that were making music videos, like Just a Band. I can't insist on this enough. One of my most special things to do when I got back, which was, I was doing this pretty much 2 weeks, maybe a month before I joined Scan Group, was shooting a video, low budget video, for a song called Hahe. People call it Hahe, Makmendea Merudi. Makmendea Merudi. We shot that over the course of one day. And it was just a band deciding, they'd seen a trailer for a film they liked called Black Dynamite, which was like, for those of you that love your film, it was a blaxploitation film, films from the 70s that had black people that were also very low budget, but they had the afros and they had the swag and the style, and they were almost always set in a hood somewhere. But you had these heroes showing up either to clean up their hood, or they could be people who were dirtying the hood with drugs and stuff, but they were also fighting the man, and the man was always a white man. And they wanted to take this idea of a blaxploitation film and translate it to Kenya and what a black superhero would look like in Kenya. So before we had even a Supa Modo, which was like another superhero film, we had Makmende. They liked the idea, we liked the idea. We went home and got wardrobe that looked like it could come out of the 70s. And we showed up and we shot over the course of one day. They didn't have a budget. They gave us like crisps and soda. Were there fries even? I don't think so. It was like crisps and soda and water. And they had a very rudimentary short list, and they were just shooting what made them happy. And then they found the story in the edit, and it was released. And by the time I was joining Scan Group, it had become a viral sensation.
I remember, I feel like that was like the first viral.
It was.
Yeah.
It actually was.
Yeah.
It was a thing that was seen around the world. It touched so many people. It inspired so much imagination. And K1, Kevin Maina, who played Makmende, became the most recognizable face at that point. He showed up in the news. He showed up local, international news, Wall Street Journal, CNN, I think BBC as well. Showed up on blogs, local, international. And that video racked up so many views when YouTube was still, it wasn't in its infantile stages, but it was still pretty early. And internet connection wasn't what it is now. Smartphones weren't as pervasive as they are now. But that was still such a proud achievement. But that was just a part of a movement of people saying film is one of the ways that we're going to express ourselves. Multimedia, whether it's TV, whether it's a small screen, whether it's music videos, whether it's small experimental short films, whether it's feature-length films, Kenyans can actually get their stamp on that. So being there, being in the US on YouTube and watching Sugar and watching the trailer for Pumzi and Soulboy, and then coming and actually watching the films, and then actually watching Sugar when it came out on Vimeo, I was like, man, something's happening, I need to be a part of that. It was quite gratifying to end up having a role on Nairobi Half Life, which is probably the most consequential Kenyan film ever made. Maybe for all time, who knows, I don't know. But it was special, that was special. So I think there was something that was validating about being in that film and having it enjoy the success that it did, that had me thinking, maybe I can leave my advertising job now. So to give you context, Nairobi Half Life, we shot it in 2010. It sat in post-production for a long time, for a whole 2 years.
Really?
And came out in 2012. That's a long time for a movie to be in post. But when it came out, everyone was so happy with the result. By the time it came out, 2012, September, I believe, I already was thinking, nah, I don't want a full-time job anymore. Akina Bithi and Jim, Bithi Masia, Jim Chuchu, who directed the high video, were now doing other cool things. There was people just doing a lot of cool stuff out there, and I was like, I really want to break free of these shackles. And there was always support from the other side. Bithi quit an advertising job, Jim quit an advertising job, and they kept saying, dude, when you're ready, on this side, we're waiting. Let's make some cool stuff. So 2013 January, I quit my job, and that's when I could say I became a filmmaker. Wasn't a smooth journey though. I don't think there's any journey that's been smooth. Yeah. It was an election year. People don't talk about it enough, but every time Kenya enters an election year, it's not just that work ceases to happen. We enter a sort of mini recession. Everyone is just holding on to their money. No one wants to bet on anything. Like no one is hedging their bets on anything, whether it's creative, whether it's corporate, whether it's residential, anything that's happening. Everyone just holds their cards to their chest because of the ghosts from 2007. And this is the first election since 2007. So there was so much tension that the 4 prospects that I had when I was quitting my job that seemed set in stone, of those 3 fell through. And the one that remained was deferred up until August of 2013, while I quit my job in January. That was a whole time of what's going on? Did I make the right decision? Did I actually, have I messed it up?
Is my career over?
I knew I could go back, but your ability to negotiate when you're the one who left, and then come back, it'll be like, hey, he's back. And I didn't want to do that. I really wanted to stay true. I think that was the most amazing, like I said, the most amazing thing that came to me is know thyself, really know thyself, ask yourself the questions. And every time I asked myself questions, I was like, no, that's not what I want to do. So I hung in there, and that was 2013. Oh my God, it's been 7-8 years.
I mean, I think it takes a lot of courage to stay true, honestly.
It does. It does.
And that's one of the things I've always admired about you, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Hey,
I appreciate that.
Most of the times your stuff, I'm like, hapo meniguza.
Oh, that's cool.
Because I think from the outside, we don't necessarily see your struggle. I think you strike a good balance, though, with even on your socials, like telling your story and the struggles, but balancing it with, but I'm staying true.
That's the only way I know how to live. I can't. I'm really glad I came back home. I'm completely unequivocal about that. I think I came back at exactly the right time. I think I came back with, we're more consequential than we think in terms of how in control of our fate we are. The problem is we're always looking at results, and we're always basing those results on time. Those are not usually the best ways to measure how you're doing. The world outside will say, time, results. What's coming in? How much money are you making? What have you hit your life milestones? And how long is it going to take? Because we're not getting any younger. So there's this hurry, and there's this need, even now, even more now, for the need. There's a need for visible results of the decisions that you're making. They have to be as visible as possible in as short a time as possible. And when that's the thing that's driving you, you know, you're setting yourself up not for failure, but for, who knows, you might succeed, but it might be called into question whether you're succeeding in the way that you want to. Yeah. Now I'll say this. I still worry about when the rent, where the rent is going to come from. I'm still a single man. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I'm 41 years old. That's not the story. That's not the story of having made it, you know, settling down, that kind of thing. Yet, even at my lowest moments, I'll never ever look at myself in the mirror and wonder if I made the wrong decision. Because I'm not using the time and I'm not using the results. I'm using the truth that's inside here, which is the most pervasive force in this universe. The Bible says we're made in the image of God. What did God do? Create. What did he do? He created. So who says that we don't have the capacity to create? And even if we're not able to see the creation right now, are you willing to take the steps, and are you willing to stay true to the person that you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Whether there's a recession, whether there's a pandemic, whether mental health issues come through, all of these will become part of the story of your creation. Everything that you're living with, everything that I'm living with now is a result of my creation yesterday and a year ago and 5 years ago and 10 years ago. And it's really interesting that we're having this conversation now. Today is exactly 11 years since I came back.
What?
11 years today. On this day, 11 years ago is when I came back to. So there's not a better time to be having this conversation. 29th September.
To the day.
To the day. I came back on 29th September.
Wow.
2009. Oh, so it's 12 years. It's 12 years. It's 12 years, actually. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Facebook memories reminded me. Because in 2010, I said it's been a year since I came back. A year ago I landed. So 12 years ago.
Wow.
I was back on Kenyan soil.
Wow.
It's very meaningful for me. So
very meaningful.
Thank you for having
for me as well.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how you went into writing?
Sure. It was all circumstance.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It wasn't something that I really wanted to act. That is all I wanted to do.
Okay.
This is not to say that I didn't have previous, like, you know, I drifted into it a couple of times, but I knew quite quickly that it wasn't something I enjoyed doing. It's something I still don't enjoy doing. Yeah. No, I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy the process of it. It's difficult.
Wow, you write so beautifully. That's one of the things I've always enjoyed about you is like, I remember one time you were like, I think I wrote a long Facebook post.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh, keep writing. And I was like, wow, Mugambi is saying my writing is good.
Your writing is good though. It really is.
Yeah, I'm the grammar police. But beyond that, I don't set out time to write.
It takes time.
Yeah.
It takes energy. And I knew that from the beginning.
Interesting.
And the reason why writing sometimes is like good editing. If you ever see a film that's well edited, it looks easy. It looks like it was very easy to put together. Sometimes you don't even notice it. It's the same thing with writing. You literally have to. It's like giving birth. It's literally bringing something into the world that didn't exist before. It's like making a sculpture. You know. What is it? When back in our Christian days, people would talk about Michelangelo looked at a slab of marble and saw King David. You know, it's the same thing. You're looking at a blinking cursor, and you have all these muddled thoughts in your head, and you have to put them out in a way that's coherent.
Yeah, sounds like my struggle with Instagram captions.
Yes, Instagram captions are hell for me. I'd be posting more if it wasn't for the captions, because you have to now, what do I accompany this picture with? You know, what is it that I'll say that's really speaking my soul right now? Because I don't want to do good morning, guys. I don't do that stuff. I don't do the Bible verse stuff. Much love to anyone who's doing that, you know, much love to you, but that's not my thing.
Yeah.
But writing is difficult. So it happened as a matter of necessity. The fourth job, the one that didn't fall through, when I quit my job, was a writing job. The first three were acting jobs.
I see.
So when all of those fell through, all I had left was writing. So I was like, I guess this is something that I'm going to have to do now. I'd been doing it again like for fun when I had a job, but now it was like, if you're going to make a living out of this, it might be something that you probably need to learn how to do now for the medium you want to get into.
Sure.
Yeah. That's how I got into it.
Okay.
And that's how I'm still continuing.
Yeah.
It has been a matter of necessity. There is a shortage of good writers. Not because there are no good writers out there, but because, like I said, it's difficult. It's painstaking.
Yeah.
And the rewards are not as visible. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah.
So I have to be in a position where the words that I'm writing are fulfilling me first before they're fulfilling other people.
And to even be, to have that space and to be in this place where words kind of pour out is a whole other.
Yeah. Can I tell you?
Yeah.
You know this.
Yeah.
I'm doing this for your viewers. I think we both know that no such place exists. You have to just sit there and push and push and push and push and push,
Yeah.
and then finally something happens. It's like flow.
Yes.
But it's not. The road there is not beautiful. It's tough. You have to really struggle through it. I'm in the middle of that right now.
Okay.
Struggling through writing my next film. So yeah.
Okay. I was about to ask you what's next.
It's my next film. Right now, what I'm doing now, I do commercial directing right now, and that's what enables me to stay at least financially afloat. I was about to say stable, afloat. But as I'm doing that, I'm working on my next feature, which I'm in the process of writing now. It's a story that's very personal to me, so I'm really giving myself enough space and time to really get what I have to say down on paper. I think I'm saying this for the first time, but at its most successful, this would be a film that would define me. Like, this is
really
why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is who I am. This is what I have to give to the world. It's a very, very, very personal film. So I'm giving myself a lot of time and space and tolerance with it.
Of course.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Neither can I.
What got you to this point about like wanting to put that out there? Because I can imagine that requires quite a bit of vulnerability.
It does. There's something about the world turning in 2020 and just turning around completely that had me thinking, we are going to die. There is no other way this story ends. We will die. I used to think Jesus is going to come back. I still believe that might be, according to the Nini, that he will return in some way. But I'm going to die. You're going to die. The person watching this is going to die. Death is perhaps the surest thing that we know is going to happen to us in this life. And if that's what's going to happen, I might as well tell my story when I can. There's so many stories that so many people want to tell, but I feel like they've buried them under circumstance and routine and the roles that you imagined you were supposed to play as a human being. But when all of that got taken away and the world became this very unsure place, I was like, okay, I guess this is what I'm going to do. I did have and still do have my own personal struggles with mental health. I am prone to depressive episodes. I am prone to anxiety. And I was like, am I going to write in spite of this, or am I going to write knowing full well that this is the experience? And I chose the latter. Knowing full well that this is the experience. The story of my life has not been one of, that sailed smoothly and that, and then that. None of that has happened. So I'm like, if I'm faced with another chapter of difficulty, what do I have to say about this? That's why I chose to be very, very vulnerable. And interestingly enough, the very, very first idea for this film, or the very first little tiny grain that would lead to now the film that I'm writing now, came to me in Philly.
Really?
Yeah, in the summer of 2009. Yeah, the summer before I came.
Okay.
I was like, maybe we should do this writing thing. I told my roommate, who is American but had lived in Kenya a long time, And we're like, maybe we should do this writing thing. We'd seen Slumdog Millionaire,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the first time we saw Indians in a Hollywood film, in a major feature Hollywood film directed by a major Hollywood director. And we're like, yeah, maybe we can do this as well. And I would say that was the true origin of the writing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're always so open about your mental health struggles, and I appreciate that, because I think it gives people. I mean, I think we've all had our struggles, to be honest. I remember middle of last year being in my mother's home and breaking down because I was like, I can't do anything. I have 2 children. I can't work. I'm stuck here. I can't go back to Kenya. I have no way of feeding them. And that was like,
that was a bit tough.
Yeah.
That was a bit tough.
Yeah. My mom basically buying all our groceries, diapers, and
Oh, man.
I was just like, and so, yeah, seeing your story a lot of times, I'm like, okay, like I'm not alone. And I'm sure other people resonate with that.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate that you're open about it as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have to credit it to the tough year that was when I joined employment, just 2010.
Yeah.
2010 going to 2011. I just turned 30. That was like without a doubt, the hardest. I don't think I've ever had it that tough mentally.
Yeah.
And I felt so alone, so alone. And I thought, if I ever have something to say about this, I'll say it.
Yeah.
Just so that people think.
Yeah.
People won't think
That
they're alone. And everyone, people are very open about what they're going through now, which I appreciate.
Correct.
It's not as difficult as it was back then.
That's true.
Where I could hardly even admit it to myself. I never ever told my parents.
Yes.
Probably even didn't tell my closest friends until it was so obvious that I just had to be like, yeah, this is what's going on. So yeah, I think people need to speak about it more.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, so I think you've, in a weird way, I know the journey hasn't been easy, but you've had such a significant impact on the film industry here, and
very grateful.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear, how you're thinking about approaching, the next couple of years and what kind of impact you want to have on the creative sector.
Wow. I dream of a Kenya where our ability, our desire to tell truthful, honest stories about ourselves and about our forefathers and about our children and our children's children. I hope that those stories can be told freely and truthfully by everyone. If you think about the situation that's happening in Kenya now, there's a war going on, and it's not a war that's it's a war by the establishment on the people. And one of the ways that they've known that they can plug our voices is to plug our stories. Just this week, this film, I Am Samuel, which is an LGBTQ themed film, was banned by the KFCB. Ezekiel Mutua is not there anymore. We rejoiced when he left, but we all had a feeling, it's going to be business as usual. And now they have someone up there whose name I can't remember, the acting CEO, who's just spilling the same rhetoric. That is probably the most obvious example of the censorship that's going on. But there's a lot of stuff going on underground, the more insidious stuff. If you've ever had to second guess yourself as a result of being within our borders, then you know it's at work. If you've ever thought, oh, that's too smart, that's too out there, people won't get it, people won't understand, that's not really my story, that's not our story, no, ours is, that's not Christian enough, it's not pure enough, it's not Kenyan, it's not African, it's not us, it's not, all of this rhetoric is in our DNA right now. And the impact that I'd like to have is to be the person that recognized that in the DNA. And again, like I said, didn't work against it, didn't work in spite of it, but worked along with it and said, despite all this, despite all the programming that we've gone through from before independence, that programming is still alive and well today. And despite that, we will still say what we have to say. I want to be the creative that said what he had to say and said it freely and freed others to do the same.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wish you every success.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see what you accomplish, and I can't wait to have you back. I
Yeah.
feel like this conversation could go for hours.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to know what it was like for you. I don't know if anyone ever asks you what it was like settling down. Because I couldn't believe you came back.
Really?
I was like, it seemed like you had a good life out there.
We did. I had an excellent Beamer, I had a house, I had a 6-figure job, and I was miserable.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about that next time.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Alrighty.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.